I want to talk about common mistakes sports bettors make, Sean, and this is something we've kind of talked about throughout throughout the year. We kind of hit on some almost every time we do talk, but give me some of the most common mistakes you think sports bettors make.
Well, there are many, but I think there's three key mistakes I think I see a lot of people make. And the first is not shopping for the best line. A half point or a few cents on the juice might not feel like a big deal at the time, but compounded over hundreds and thousands of bets, that's massive. So you always want to make sure you're getting the best line. Like you said, having multiple books, having access to that is critical. The second is no bankroll discipline. You could win more bets than you lose and still bust if your unit sizing is erratic and not consistent. So a proper bankroll plan will protect you from the inevitable rough patches. And when you're hot, your bet size can go up. That's part of it as well. So I think having a bankroll discipline is key. And the third is more of a philosophical one, but no self-awareness or evolution. I think the best bettors constantly evaluate the process, not just on, the results, but just the underlying things, the process itself. You kind of have to know what markets you're best in, you're best equipped to find an edge in, and what you struggle with, and kind of adjust accordingly. But it's an evolving, all the leagues are evolving. The prop markets are evolving. We're getting new data when it comes to things. So it's just always staying on top and really being honest with yourself and what you're good and what you struggle with, and just constantly improving. You're never going to be perfect. I've been betting for 20 plus years now, and I'm still tinkering with my process and trying to get better. So it's about, just constantly being self-aware and constantly evolving. I see a lot of people kind of ignore this part of it.
Yeah, like I would say this, and I still haven't fully, I'm in the process of diving into this, but Sean, and I think we all noticed this last year, betting the NFL last year was not like betting the NFL probably the last 20 before that. Like it was just I don't know if it was because of the kickoff rules and because of just more teams are getting smarter, but it was like favorites were covering at a higher clip, and it was just the scores were different, and it just turned into something different. And we talk about it with DFS and fantasy and prop betting too, where it's like the league average baselines are changing, and there's things that are making these things change in each sport. Hockey is completely different I would say in the last 5 to 8 years than it had been prior. And there was a stoppage, and then it was different then, and pre-COVID in the NFL, and then there's just so many different things that you got to kind of pay attention to. So, but I do have some, because as a guy that bets a lot of unders, I can see like the mistakes almost more clear than I can give like a piece of advice in a positive way for each of the mistakes. Like I see more of things people shouldn't do. So I'll just list some. So if you're not profitable as a bettor, you're probably doing one of these things or a combination of these things. Number one, you're probably not betting on enough unders and underdogs. You're probably not being contrarian enough. Remember, it's a market. There's herd mentality. That's the way the books are going to shade lines, and the money is going to move lines. So there's no jumping on the tail of sharp action from 2 days ago or even 2 minutes ago could be pointless. Again, there has to be an actual edge with the bet itself, and a lot of times that's going to be on the contrarian side, because that just makes sense. If you want to know how Vegas always wins, that's one of the ways. It's that they're going to collect more money and the line's going to move in the direction of the public, and the public's at best 50-50, and that's not going to cut it. Number three, you do too many parlays. If you're doing parlays, that means you have to hit every single bet in that parlay, or sometimes they'll give you if you only get one wrong, but it's still going to be a discounted rate compared to what you would get if you bet those bets individually over the long term. That's mathematics. There's no debate there, and that goes for parlays at large. Number four, I think being too sensitive to price. So Sean, you kind of hit on the other side of it, of like the line shopping. Completely agree. Very necessary to maximize your value. At the same time, like I said, when a team covers, they're usually covering by 7 points in the NFL or something like that. The average winning team in the NBA wins by 11. right? The spread for a favorite is almost never even -11. So sometimes people are too sensitive to price, where, and that's why I try to get better about, when I remember, like, okay, post the limit that you would bet this to if I post something in the action app. But generally, it's like if you see me bet something at -120, like, I would bet it at -130. Like, I'm gonna have a bigger edge than like this tiny little percent of which I'm working with there. So I'd say a lot of times, especially if you're tailing other people's bets, don't be overly price sensitive either. Ideally, it would be good to find a limit, but more often than not, like, if you get a few more cents of juice, it's not gonna really tilt the bet the other way. It shouldn't. Then they just shouldn't be betting it. The edge would be too small in the first place. So that's one. And then the last one is sample size. People are putting way too much weight into small sample sizes, recent sample sizes, and that's one. So Sean, I think one of the notions has been all this data, all this artificial intelligence, chatbots, LLMs, all these different things, the rise of betting in general, and all these betting sites, the legalization, I should say. There's all this data now, right? And I feel like people are like, oh, the market's sharper, it's harder to beat. But no, it just means more people are using bad data, right? Like, have you noticed that, or is that something that I'm just making up?
No, yeah, you're right. I see it all the time, like last 5 game logs on Twitter, which there could be some value in that. Like, if you identify what's causing that, like for baseball, for example, if it's a strikeout prop, he could be throwing his slider more and he's getting people to swing and miss at it more. There's a reason for that. Maybe the market hasn't really caught up, but sometimes, it's just that player's due for regression and you're kind of overlooking sort of the underlying data and you're just going off box score data. So I agree. I think there's a lot more data out there, but it doesn't mean everybody's analyzing it appropriately. Not a lot of people have, extensive math backgrounds, so they can kind of overlook small sample sizes because of that. So that creates inefficiencies too. So just because there's way more info and data than ever doesn't mean that everybody's using it appropriately.
Yeah, and I see this one a lot because I generally don't pay attention to social media. Really try not to pay attention to much of anything other than my own process, just because the noise just tends to not really lead me to anything.
That's good advice in itself, right?
Yeah. I mean, depending on who you are, because I would say, when I was newer to the game, I was paying a lot more attention, just trying to feel things out. But yeah, I'm at a point now where, like, my process, it's tough to really pay attention to other things. But I will say, in general, I would say the public noise, because, like, a lot of times, and this goes into the sample size thing specifically, I'll see things like this receiver posted at least 35 yards in each of his last, or 4 of his last 5 games. His prop is only 19.5 for this next game. And it's like a guy I like hammered the unders on, and I'm looking on social and, like, it's easy to make a case the other way. Well, yeah, it's always easy to make a case in some random small sample size. So, that kind of noise, definitely either tune it out, or if you're at the point where you can start to recognize this, maybe you listen to this podcast, bet the other side a lot of times. That's like, there's nothing that makes me more comfortable in a bet than seeing like the talking heads giving it out on like a big show. And I've been there. I've been in that. But that's the thing. They made fun of me on those shows because I would be giving out like under 2.5, whatever. And to the point where sometimes they don't even, a lot of people don't know this. They don't let you give out unders a lot of times on those shows. So that's something also to keep in mind. It kind of varied depending on the league and the show, but just so people know, from someone that's been there and does that, sometimes they don't even let you give out unders. So it's like when you see,
I can't join them because that would.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, definitely don't engage as much as I used to, and I mean, you know what I mean? It's one of those things that that's just the reality of it, and it's not anybody, it's not their fault. It's coming down from somewhere else. But the point is, there's nothing. A lot of times, there's nothing better than seeing like public outlets or Twitter accounts or X accounts, I should say, or whatever it is on social media, TikTok, whatever, giving out a certain play, and then it's like it's getting spread around. Like, oh man, do I want to bet the opposite side of that? Like, you know what I mean? Like These things they're generally just small samples. And I used to think, because a lot of times the sports books will also show you like last 5 game logs in there, like in the sports book. Like let's say you go to a certain bet, they'll show you like last 5. I used to think they were just trying to throw people off, but like sometimes I think they actually they are basing their lines off the last 5 too. So either way, there's gonna be some kind of edge with the sample size, whether it's against the book, whether it's against just the public, or both. But generally, you want to have your antennas up, and more often than not, like whatever, when people are on one thing, definitely step back and say, how could this go wrong? Because a lot of times your most profitable bets are going to be the contrarian ones. Like every time I post bets, my friends are like hitting me up like, why are you posting these obscure bets? I'm like, because like these are the ones that haven't been hit. Like it's or these are the ones where the public hasn't, like the cat's not out of the bag. Because sometimes the public will be right too, but the cat will just come out of the bag. Like trying to think of one, like I think you had, maybe it was like the Noah Gray one last year for the Super Bowl or something, where like everyone was on his under, but I don't even think I ended up betting it, because by the time you gave it out and everyone got done with it, like it had dropped like 5 yards, and I was like, all right, like I don't even have it anymore. But like, so you have situations like that too. But yeah, small sample size, no bueno, unless you can identify it. Like, okay, this is 4 games, and 4 games ago they started playing a whole new opponent, like in the NBA or NHL or something, and for a playoff series, maybe that.